Zach, you're up.
All right. Hey, everyone. Welcome. I think we got 40 people in here right now. Awesome. Well, I think we can just get started. So we got a pretty action-packed night tonight. Basically, I'm going to do a quick slide deck here, just on some things that have happened recently with SPARSA. It'll take 5-10 minutes, and then we're going to get right into it. So we got a presentation from Jamie Geiger on Windows patching, and we have Chaim Sanders running panel. So this is, I think, going to be at least the first panel I've seen that SPARSA's ever done, and who better to do it than Mr. Sanders. So let me get right into it. So as you can see here, it's a pretty beautiful title slide. A lot of things went into launching this nonprofit, and one of them includes branding kits. So everything you kind of see and that I'm talking about tonight, a lot of work has gone into it. And when I get to the board slide, I'll make sure to shout out everyone that's helped kind of get it to where it is right now, and also shout everybody else out that's helped us. So as you can see, we have a logo. It's a little bit better than the original logo, the world with the lock around it. I hear Jamie Geiger does have an OG sweatshirt with an OG logo on it, so definitely check that out. So just for the agenda, I'm going to give a status update, everything that's going on and what has happened so far with the nonprofit. I'm going to introduce the board. We're going to talk about membership structure. And basically, now that we're an entity, we got to make some money. So in order to do that, there are a couple different ways to kind of solicit donations, and what better way to have membership structure, just like we had SPARSA members, when this was being ran at our college. We'll then talk about the launch of some of our programs. So we want to take what we've earned and we want to put it towards some really good causes. And we got some really cool ideas. I'm really excited to talk about them. And then lastly, I'll link the donation page. I'll link where you sign up to become a member. Everyone here, make sure you go and sign up for the mailing list that gets you into kind of like our hopper to go and send you updates, as well as signs you up for SPARSA, and then donate if you can. And then we'll finish it off and I'll introduce our speakers. So really, status update, we got the 501c3. So what does that mean? Well, according to the IRS, like the TLDR, and I pulled out the two kind of important ones here, is that we can now start using our membership structure and using our community to basically raise some capital and then put that towards some really cool stuff. I thought one of the bullets was interesting in there, was that if you would like to add us to your will, we will happily take any bequests that come upon our members, and it's tax-free. So it's going to be a great thing for your family going forward. No, but seriously, we get a lot of stuff from this. Basically, we are a business entity. We can make purchases tax-free, so that'll help a lot when field marketing events kind of become a thing again. We see everyone at security conferences. We'll be able to take advantage of nonprofit programs. So we've already started work on getting into kind of big databases dedicated to nonprofits where we can get software and hardware really, really cheap. And that's going to be important for when we start doing research. And then lastly, we just want to make sure that this entity, it has a bank account, because having a bank account is kind of important if you're going to raise capital, and then all of the logistics behind that's taken care of. So leading up to this, starting from January this year, when we started the GoFundMe, to now, we've done everything from incorporating, getting the tax 501c3 status with the IRS in the state of Maryland, where we're running out of. We now have a bank, which is good. We have ways for you to donate. And now we're getting into what are we going to do with that donation money. So I'll give a little bit more details on that. But really, when it comes down to it, the original vision behind all of this, and for those that don't really know what SPARSA is, it was a security club created at the Rochester Institute of Technology post 9/11. And the basic premise behind it was to get together as a group of students and try to solve the hard security problems that the world's facing, because ever since 9/11, a lot of things have changed just in terms of how companies kind of deal with risk and things like that. So we want to take that vision of that security club where let's just say me as someone who's aspiring to be within security, I have this idea and I want support from people that can help mentor me through that idea. I need equipment. I need people to kind of point me in the right direction, and I can kind of take advantage and bounce ideas off of. That formed a lot of really, really good cybersecurity practitioners at our college. And we're starting to see that a lot more with a lot of other colleges. But we want to take that vision and make it for anyone that wants to participate in our 501c3 and wants to be a member. So we want to provide that mentorship. We want to provide that support. We want to provide that kind of thought leadership and kind of that going back and forth and things like that on these presentations. And so that's why we made this. So really, when it comes down to it, we had to come up with a mission statement. That's just something that 501c3s do. And this is our mission statement. And for those that are kind of familiar with SPARSA, it shouldn't be too surprising. The only thing that really changes here is that it's not going to be at one college anymore or a couple of colleges that we're familiar with. It's going to be all around the US. We'd love to take it global. And we just want to make sure people can get that access to that networking and those events and that research, and not have to worry too much about being in a position where maybe they can't go to a college that has something that they want, or they can't afford it or something like that. So none of this would be possible without the help from our board. So everybody here that you see on the screen is now part of the board for SPARSA. So we have members mostly from the Rochester Institute of Technology, graduated many different years, and they're all over the US now, working in private companies, working for public companies. And I think we actually have our first international board member, Katie, where she just recently made a move into Canada. But everyone here helped execute on this vision and helped build out a lot of the things that kind of went into this. So I just want to thank everyone here, and you'll be seeing a lot more of everyone here, either helping out with certain programs, with certain initiatives, helping out with the website, helping out with field events, or even giving presentations like tonight. So thank you, everyone. So early in the presentation, I talked about how do you raise capital and how do you raise, it's not really capital, just how do you raise like funds to go and do those great things that you want to do. There are a couple different ways that you can do it, and they were laid out in front of us, and the board thought that the best way to kind of do this was through this membership structure. So we want to create this club-like environment so we can provide benefits to members of that club, is basically why we chose to go down this route. So the way we're rolling it out right now is that anyone can go and sign up and become a member of SPARSA, just because we need to make sure we can get a lot of people in so we can start talking, we can start giving out information, we can start that kind of collaboration. We just need to drive the numbers up and build a community. Traditionally, with membership, you generally create kind of a dues structure. We'll do that, but I think for right now, because things are so crazy with COVID and we're all doing it remote, we just want to keep it open for now. In the future, we see these types of incentives kind of coming in where if you want to take advantage of them, you do have to pay dues, but it's not a requirement right now. So make sure you go sign up. I'll put the link in at the end of the presentation. So for some initial perks, we're going to start small and then kind of get going really quickly with other things. So you're going to get access to Discord. You're going to get access to our mailing list. That mailing list is really important. One of the big things about having a security club, especially one that's been around as long as SPARSA, is the access to the network. So if you're looking for a job, if you have somebody who's a friend that's looking for a job, or you're looking to hire people, or you just need help with something, whether it's somebody who's familiar with a Windows problem, a Linux problem, a networking problem, that's where the real core of SPARSA is. And so make sure you get on that mailing list because it's going to be a really important tenet of being a member. You'll get first access when it comes to buying swag. You'll be able to participate and volunteer for meetings, and whether you're an experienced professional, you want to practice for a presentation, or you've never presented before, we'll make sure that you have everything you need to kind of prepare and present in front of the community that we have here. And then lastly, members are also able to join into different committees. So as we build out SPARSA and we find different committees for things like scholarships, for field events, maybe participating in a CTF, we're looking for members to help us build those things. So it's a really good leadership opportunity just to kind of help with the core mission as well as meet other people and network with other people. No experience required. That's the whole point of this, is we want everyone from who's interested in getting started in cybersecurity to someone who's been in it for a very long time, everyone in between. So, for professionals and for students, there's definitely different ways that you can take advantage of being a member. And we listed some here, whether it's hiring opportunities, whether to join and kind of work on presentations, maybe for something at work or a conference you're targeting. Absolutely, come join, and then we can get that set up. For students, what we're really excited about, what I'm about to talk about in the next slide, is our grant program and our scholarship program, where you can actually apply for a research grant, and we're able to provide you funding and provide you logistical support to go and do that research. Also, if you're looking for an internship, if you're looking for a new job, having that kind of SPARSA label has really helped me personally go and kind of navigate my network for opportunities. I know it's helped other people, and we want to recreate that for anyone who joins. So make sure you sign up and take advantage of these things. And then for both, the thing that really got this started is our field events. So we always had a meetup at ShmooCon, we always had a meetup at DEF CON. We want to do more of that. And if you're a member, you get to kind of really have that access to these field events and take advantage of the perks there. And then one of the things that we were really excited about to talk about as well is, especially if you're a professional who's maybe considering another job or considering kind of moving into another company, we're happy to do resume review. We're happy to help out with interviews, and it's the same thing for students. So in terms of our launch programs, I talked about the resume review. Everybody here is doing the Twitch meeting right now, so thank you for coming. But the big thing that we're trying to launch right now is the Student Hacker Fund. So the basic premise behind this fund is that we will raise money, and there's going to be a certain amount of money where we say we can now do one research project with a group of people or with one person who wants to do this research. And once we get that threshold, you are able to apply for a grant. You can kind of go through the grant writing process, get experience with that. It'll go to a committee that will review the grants and will make a selection. And the cool thing about this is that it could be about any relevant cybersecurity topic, anything that you're interested in, and we'll help you every step of the way, from providing cash if you need to buy equipment, We're going to try to partner with universities where we can actually do like an independent study with a stipend. We'll help out with Jira and Confluence access, so kind of like a wiki page for you to store your stuff, as well as like teaching you how to manage projects. And then the goal is to get you to present it at a conference, submit it as a paper, potentially to a journal, as well as create open source tools. And then the last thing I have here is just like a note on field events. We're going to do field events as soon as everything kind of opens back up. And so that's going to be something we're going to hit really hard, both from a fundraising thing, as well as just a networking thing, so everyone can get to know each other more. Cool. So that's the presentation. I think the big question here is, how the hell do I join? Two ways. If you want to sign up and you want to join our mailing list and everything, hit the signup.sparsa.org URL that you see here. This is especially for those people that don't feel comfortable donating right now. But if you do feel comfortable donating, we set up a donation button on our website with that first link there. The minimum is $1. It'll ask if you want to do a monthly recurrence, and you can donate as much as you want. Whether you go through the sign up at the bottom or whether you go through the sign up at the top, we'll add you as a member. And the goal right now is just to get as many people in. If you can help donate, great. That'll help pay for some infrastructure costs and help contribute to some of our launch programs. But that's about it. And so our goal is to do more of these meetings, and we're going to make sure that we can provide updates as much as we can in terms of any like things that happen in terms of programs or committees that we've created, or any change in any of the like board rules or things like that. So go join. We'll give you lots of updates. We're really excited to work with everyone here, and seriously, thank you for coming to the meeting tonight. And I'm done. So I'm going to pass this off to our next presenter.
One note about the donation. There is, I am a bad citizen and didn't make the link for it yet. But if you just go to sparsa.org, there's a big ass button in the middle of the page that says donate. So you can access it that way.
Okay.
Don't worry about the 404. Don't worry about that little guy.
That little guy? We're not going to worry about that little guy. Yeah. So sparsa.org, literally right at the top, click donate. We're bringing a PayPal. Minimum's $1. Anything more, like seriously, thank you. You can make it a monthly donation. We'll put some information out too. You can, because we are a charity, you can deduct this from your taxes. So there is a tax benefit if you want to go down that route. So thanks for pointing that out, Rusty.
Cool. All right. We'll get set with the first speaker and be back in a couple minutes.
Cool.
For our first speaker, we have Jamie Geiger talking about Microsoft patches.
Everybody. Hopefully you can see my screen okay. I think it's sort of fucked. I gotta change browsers here. Hope everybody's doing great. Hope everybody liked the intro. I'm going to be giving a talk on Microsoft patches tonight. This is a kind of a talk I just adopted from a blog post I published last month, or maybe the month before. I don't know. Time doesn't exist anymore. And it is basically all about how to take a Microsoft patch from where to get the Microsoft patches. First of all, where does Microsoft keep them? I can go grab a package up online, and then how to take that package and bring it all the way to a binary that I can go diff against to find bugs, end-day vulnerabilities, things like that, and see what they actually patched, and some more details and tidbits along the way. Let's see. Let me full screen this real quick. All right. I'm going to try to pull up the Twitch stream on the side here. I'll be able to see the chat. So please ask questions in the Twitch chat. I really won't be able to see Discord. So please send messages in the Twitch if you can. So after rearranging some stuff here, let's get going. So jumping in, Microsoft patches, how do they do it? So kind of a high-level overview on why this kind of matters here. I have half a slide on that later as well. But when you update, say, your Linux machine, you're going to either compile from source if you hate yourself or you run Gentoo, and the other way is just installing packages like from your package manager, right? That's usually how you're going to do it. You know where those come from. You know, the Ubuntu repo, the Debian repo, the whatever repo you're using. Usually that stuff's going to come from a pretty well-known source, and then you can go download them on the side separately. Hang on. Yes, you do need to update your Linux boxes. Sorry, I'm watching the chat. People are saying hang on. So, so how does Windows actually do that? So obviously Windows downloads stuff automatically, right? And so you can actually go and download that stuff separately, and you can extract that, take advantage of the fact that those are all online for you to go and download, and then make use of them for various things, nefarious or otherwise. Okay, so I'm gonna have to go and restart my computer now. Fuck you. So you're probably all used to this box, right? That box comes up all the time. It says, hey, you need to go update your computer. And then if it comes up in the background, you say you're playing a game, playing a nice game of COD or something. You know, this pops up and you're like, okay, I guess I'll go fuck myself because I have my computer's just restarting in the middle of my game and I just lost. And I was going like 40-0 in a COD game, which has never happened to me. I'm terrible at that game. So why does that happen? First, an introduction on me, some random things I pulled from here, some history. Some of the content in this presentation, some of the GIFs specifically, and the images are going to be from one of the first ever SPARSA presentations I gave back in 2013. So if you were there back in the day, you may recognize a few of these from Brian Harmat and I's IP tables presentation. That picture of Muvix is him flipping me off because, well, there's a story there. First of all, who am I? I go by Wumbo, but my name's Jamie. An RIT alumni, SPARSA alumni. I got this pretty dope SPARSA hoodie right here. And I work for Grimm currently. I live in Northern Virginia. And I do, well, really everything from reverse engineering to exploit development to regular development, low level kind of stuff, a lot of Windows-based things. I really like Windows. That's sort of been always my thing. We are hiring. So if you go to our website, I'll post it in the Discord later on. We're hiring for application security jobs. We're trying to hire a bunch of application security people. So if you think you got the chops to come and work on our team with some of the smartest application security people I've ever met in my entire life, please apply. We also have an IT manager position open. That would really help if anybody could take that away from me because I'm currently doing IT still somehow. CCDC Red Team, I did nationals last year, and that was an interesting experience. I don't know if I'm going to be able to go next year. They kind of let more spots on for nationals because it was virtual. Super great experience. Wrote some pretty fun malware for that, and was able to work with some of the best and brightest I've ever met. Those guys are crazy. They have some really cool stuff. I am also a certified SANS instructor, so I teach 760, the advanced exploitation for penetration testers, advanced exploit development for penetration testers. I recently rewrote the 4th day of it, the Windows kernel day. So if you can get your company to pay for it, please take my course. I would love to see you in class. People that are here are the people that I want in the classes I teach. I'm trying to pick up some more classes for next year as well. If you've taken 760 or you're thinking about it, there's an exam that's coming out that we're almost finished developing. If you want to if you can't justify the course until there's a certification associated with it, you're in luck because that's coming very, very soon. Yeah, so that's me. Let's move on to the technical content. So for our agenda today, here we are. Really, first of all, why do I care about this topic? Again, we don't really like Windows does a lot of things where you're like, well, this is just an entire black box, right? The kernel is closed source. People publish research sometimes, but you can't just go on GitHub and look at the kernel source for Windows. Well, that's not entirely true. You can find the Windows Server 2003 code, and the XP source code did just leak, but lots changed since Windows XP days. So this is something that I really find useful. Say, Microsoft has come out with, I think SMB Ghost is a really great example of this, where Microsoft will come out with a security bulletin and say, hey, there's this problem. We have this horrible, horrible problem with SMB, some compression bug. Here, disable it with this command. So you can do one of two things. You can look at the spec, look at the SMB spec, try to figure out, okay, where's the bug, or you can just wait for the patch in the next week or so, and then you can diff the patch against the previous, and then figure out exactly where they patched the vulnerability, so you can try to take advantage of it. There is still value and money in end-day vulnerabilities, right? How many people patch the day the patch is released? Very, very few. So if you're able to quickly identify where the thing was patched and then take that and make it into a full vulnerability or a full exploit, you can potentially sell that. You can potentially use that for just your own research and things like that. So kind of that part of it. But also, I think it's just interesting how they do patch management. We'll learn about some of the patch file formats that they're using these days, and kind of how they're packaged and some undocumented stuff. We kind of expect that with the Windows world. IT manager position, it can be remote, definitely remote. Someone asked that on the Twitch chat. So how do we get a hold of patches? First things first, we are going to look at obviously the automated methods, but then we're also going to look at how to get patches just manually, the good old-fashioned way where you got to go to a website and download them. So there's a couple different ways. The first one you're probably all used to. That's that dumb box that pops up that says, "Hey man, I need to update. Hey man, you got any of them updates?" And it'll annoy you until you update. Obviously, updating is a good thing, but not while I'm in the middle of a game. There's also WSUS and WUB, which are update servers where a business can choose what updates to install. And that's actually really great for offline environments. So if you're in an environment that's completely cut off from the internet, you download the patches, you put them inside the WSUS server or the WUB server, and then it'll serve them out to all of the computers on your network, the Windows computers on your network. They did enable a pretty cool feature recently, talking about closed networks, or even like if you have multiple Windows computers in your house, they did enable peer-to-peer updates a number of versions ago. So your computers may send each other updates, which is kind of neat. So it only needs to get downloaded from Microsoft servers one time. And then we have what we're going to be talking about, the Microsoft Update Catalog. So the Microsoft Update Catalog, the pioneers used to ride these babies for miles. That's all you had. You just went on their site and you downloaded the patches when you had to download the patches. This horrible bug came out for Windows XP or whatever. You would go on you would go on here and download whatever update you needed. They still keep this completely up to date, so you can go download whatever patch of the month is there, cumulative update, or there's also drivers and things like that as well. So some of you may be familiar with the concept of Patch Tuesday. Usually when a Microsoft patch is introduced, they will release it inside of Patch Tuesday. So it's the second Tuesday of every month. Sometimes they do out-of-band patches, but that's pretty rare. So this is kind of established to give IT security people I wouldn't say head start, but just so they know when the patches are coming out. So they're not just all of a sudden dropped on a Friday afternoon at 4 o'clock, and then they're vulnerable for the whole weekend. It's like beginning of the week, it's pre-planned, it's known. And yeah, there have been a ton of bugs this year. And so you know when it's coming in advance, so you can patch. Or if you are, an offensive person, you can basically download these patches on Patch Tuesday. You know when they're all there, and then you diff against the previous. You follow some of the methods I'm going to teach in this talk, and you follow some of these methods to get the old and the new version, diff them against each other, do a binary diff, and then you'll be able to see that just what changed, and then you can kind of extrapolate from there and figure out what bugs they may have patched. Sometimes they announce them, and sometimes they don't. These days, they pretty much just, unless it's like a 10, unless it gets like a CVSS 10, they don't really. They sometimes just like let these things slide under the radar. I remember there was a bug that was just like a simple buffer overflow that like Alex Ionescu had reported to Microsoft like 2 years prior, and they like silently fixed it, like just in some random update. So it could have been pretty bad. Like bugs like that, like small bugs like that, can definitely go a long way, depending on the situation. So that Windows Update catalog, basically, it's just going to have, again, your Microsoft Update packages. And now these packages are going to be pretty big. You're going to have, before Delta updates, which we'll talk about later, they used to be, I want to say, gigabytes in size. There's different kinds of update packages, which we'll talk about, but these can be pretty large. So these days, they're more around like 200 to 300 megabytes. So let's see. Yeah, so you can go down. There's a pretty good search feature on this website, so you can actually go and just search whatever the year, the month, the release number, like 2004, the architecture you're looking for, and then the word cumulative, and you can just get the patches for your system for that month. So if you search that specifically, and that's one of the patches I pulled, you'll get the cumulative updates for Windows 10 and Windows Server as well. So just a kind of a note about the Microsoft Update Catalog, when you search for Windows Server and Windows 10 updates, they'll usually be the same thing unless something special's gone on. I really haven't seen very many situations where they're different. I was going to show the Microsoft Update Catalog here. Let me pull up. I think I'm already in a browser. So if you go to the Microsoft Update Catalog, catalog.update.microsoft.com, you get this really shitty interface, and you can search for 2020-11, and that'll pull up some results for you. So it has all the different versions, dynamic, cumulative, all of that. Yeah, the interface is really great. Make sure to click download. I fuck this up all the time, so I'll click this part, and it just brings up this very nice description, and it's useless. It doesn't actually give you the installer. Make sure to click the download button, and then it'll usually bring you to a download page with an MSU, unless they've taken it down, which is pretty rare. If you notice the Windows Server, let me see. Yeah, here we go. These two are Windows Server and Windows 10. They're the same size, and they're also the same package too. So, and yeah, so that's the Windows, the Microsoft Update Catalog. You can grab stuff from there. I've already pulled down some updates for this if I have time to do a demo later on. So again, screenshot for those of you that are going to be looking over this afterwards. And so the MSRC portal is actually pretty useful to us. Thank you, Kanye. Very cool for the Microsoft Update portal, the MSRC portal. Basically, Microsoft's security team publishes these pages that say, "Hey, here's a vulnerability, CVE 69420, whatever, and here is the package that you need to download to update to fix that bug." Which, I mean, from an attacker and an offensive person's standpoint, like think about that, right? Oh, hey, here you can get the patch, and this is basically telling you exactly where the bug is. Great, thank you very much. So it's It can be helpful. They're less descriptive now than they used to be. In the old days, which is I think the next slide, they used to tell you like basically exactly where the bug is. You can usually glean some information out of the details from the MSRC report, but you will oftentimes find yourself searching for what component. You kind of got to know Windows a little bit in order to know what component you're actually going after. Sometimes it'll say it, like with Bad Neighbor a couple of months ago, or I think it's last month. Bad Neighbor was a IPv6 denial of service bug, and you pretty much could tell that was going to be in TCP/IP.sys because that's the driver for TCP/IP in the kernel. So you can kind of tell sometimes. I mean, was it SMB Ghost? The SMB compression bug that was earlier this year, that one was in serve2.sys, which if you don't know Windows, maybe you wouldn't know that hosts the SMB protocol, the newer version of the SMB protocol up to, I think, 3.1.1 or 3.1.2 are the newest version now. So our issue can potentially be these cumulative updates that are getting distributed, which we'll describe those more in a minute, may contain security updates, but also they may contain feature updates, and it can be really hard to tell the difference between what's a feature update and what a security update is if you're just diffing a binary. And so these pages sort of help point you in the right direction, especially if they talk about things like for Bad Neighbor or for SMB Ghost, they talk specifically about a feature or how to disable or mitigation, which leads you to like kind of the right code path. I believe the SMB Ghost compression bug in SMB was, I think the function was called like serve2 decompress, and the mitigation that they reported on the MSRC portal was like turn off SMB compression. And I was like, okay, well, if you don't know this, Microsoft also distributes all the symbols for all of the binaries they release inside of Windows. So they distribute all of the function names and a lot of structures related to the binaries that they're going to ship with these updates. So if I'm debugging, if I'm a developer that's debugging, I can actually like see, okay, something crashed inside of kernel 32, and I can see what function it crashed inside of, and whatever. They have a server that you can just go hit and set WinDebug to download those symbols, those PDB symbols, if you didn't know that. So a lot of information that you kind of have to collect yourself, but you can make use of it pretty easily after you know how to collect all of it, which is sort of what this talk is about. So again, I'm not going to bring up the MSRC portal, but here it is in all its glory. It just got an overhaul that nobody wanted. It looks pretty, but like security people don't need like a Metro interface with like, you know, like gradiented loading bars and all this other BS. Just give us the information as fast as possible. And it does have dark mode. Or maybe that might be Dark Reader. I don't know. If you don't use Dark Reader, it's a Firefox and Chrome plugin that makes every site have dark mode, except the ones that messes up completely, and then those are bad. But yes, you can see here that it's going to give us the CVSS score. It's going to give us the updates. It's going to give us the article where the specific article where it's describing the bug, and you can download the security only and the monthly rollup patches linked straight from here. And then it also gives the CVE details as well. So the old days, if you notice, I took this screenshot yesterday. The last post on the MS, like the Microsoft Security Bulletin page, is MS17023. That's not long after MS17010, you may know as Eternal Blue, back in 2017. So they stopped doing these bulletins. These bulletins used to be great. I mean, you basically would go to this and it would tell you almost exactly where the bug was. Fantastic. So now that we kind of have an understanding of like where to get these things, let's talk about what types of patches there are. Well, the Microsoft Update Server does contain patches for not only Windows but also third-party drivers. So there are like there's like Logitech USB updaters and Intel microcode updaters and things like that. So you can find all sorts of different stuff on there. So types of patches, the one we're really going to be focusing on is a cumulative update. Cumulative updates have every single either file or deltas, which we'll talk about, from the 0.1 version, the base version. You may know it as like the gold release, or the like when Windows 10 1904 rather not 1904. Yeah, 1904, 1909. Yeah, it was 1903. Sorry, they switched to the 4 model in 2000s. They kind of have been revamping their naming scheme for Windows over the past couple years. They've moved from like Anniversary to Redstone. They had Redstone 1 through 5, then they had 19H1, and then then Creator Update. Now they're doing like 19, like the year, the last 2 digits of the year, H, and then 1 or 2 for first half, second half, and then they're also doing like elements now. So like 20H2 is now FE is iron. So I don't know where they're going with it, but basically that when that version gets released, all the binaries are at the 0.1 version, and so these cumulative updates contain everything you need in order to bring your system up to the most up to date or wherever up to date content that package has. So if I download November's update, I'm going to be able to apply that to any system at any patch level of that specific system. So you saw we had like updates for Windows 10 1903 or Windows 10 2004, whatever the version. If I apply that to any version of Windows that's on that build, then I can actually fast forward it to wherever that package is. And so we'll talk about how that actually gets done later on when we learn about deltas and why those updates aren't like 1,000 gigabytes. This enables you, which is really cool. This actually enables you to not have to remember when you used to install MSU, standalone MSUs, you would click on it and it would say, hey, you need to install this other patch first. That is no longer a thing. So it'll give you just the delta from the base version to the current version, which is pretty cool. Servicing stack updates, basically update Windows Update. So there's got to be a way to do that. So they update the Windows Update procedure, and then dynamic updates. This is just me being cheeky, I guess. Windows Updater updates. So it does like some early launch driver updates. The installation process goes and checks for a dynamic update package when you're installing Windows, say from a disk. And then you'll have like out-of-band security updates sometimes. So things like Bluekeep and SMB Ghost, they'll sometimes publish these out-of-band updates that are not released on Patch Tuesday. Is that a service pack? I'm not really sure what the context is on, is that a service pack? But basically, like, the versions of Windows that come out are just, I guess they're releases now. They're not, I guess you could probably refer to them as service packs, but they're not considered service packs by the OS, like version 1909 versus version 2004. That's just the like incremental build. There is also a build number. It's actually pretty confusing, the build numbers for Windows. It's kind of annoying. Yeah, XP 2020, baby, XP 2020. So in the beginning, kind of a little history lesson here. On the XP days, you would actually get an exe. So you get an exe, self-extracting, use /extract, like patch /extract, and then it would extract it out, or you could double click on it and it would just install on your computer. Then they ended up moving to the MSU format, which you may have seen before, and that had full files in it. And so the issue with that is, again, the ordering, right? I have to install this patch before I can install this patch because this patch relies on a DLL that was distributed in a previous patch, right? And you get into this ridiculous chain of dependencies. And the trouble with that, I mean, think about it, right? If you're an administrator applying patches to a system, if you try applying patches to a system and maybe one of them breaks stuff, and that patch has a dependency that another patch depends on, but you can't install the one back here because of some reason, that starts to get pretty complicated. So the newer method is kind of solves both issues of the size and the order. And so cumulative updates sort of solve that. I described those on the previous slide. So jumping into sort of the meat of the technical part here, this is how we're actually going to go through extracting a patch, how to do it by hand, what that means, what all the files mean, and kind of how to kind of navigate around a patch file. And then I'm going to give you a script to do it because doing stuff by hand is only useful the first time. So you may have worked with these two types of files before: MSU, Microsoft Standalone Update, and then cabinet files.cab. Cab is such an archaic format, but there's an expand tool. Just a side note, if anybody's ever tried to build a cabinet file, try using makecab. Like makecab.exe is the executable. It's still on Windows 10. It's a nightmare. That tool is just horrible. I had to make cabinet files. I was trying to do something I needed to make a cabinet file for, and it took me like an hour to make like a cabinet file. It's just terrible. So you have expand.exe, which will actually expand. Funny enough, it sticks right to its name. Expand both of these formats. It's a Windows-only tool. You could do this stuff on Linux, but just download a Windows VM from somewhere. I know everybody here is capable of downloading a Windows VM from somewhere, hopefully legally. Buy Windows 10 Pro, yay, go sports. So if you're looking at an MSU, the top level of an MSU is going to have a couple of different files in it. Usually, and again, we're looking at a cumulative update. Usually you'll have this wsusscan.cab, which has a bunch of like wsus related metadata. Remember, that's that patch distribution server. We've got localization information it's got all the languages, all the strings for all the languages. Not that important. We don't really care about that from the perspective that we're coming at it from. So yeah, buy software. Yeah, I have heard of that. Then you have a couple of different files that are named. The number signs here are just the KB, the knowledge base number. So 7 digits, and then dash the architecture, whether it's x64, x86, or ARM64. And you have 3 files that are very similarly named here. This is just a metadata, small metadata format. It's like like 24 lines, just describing what that patch actually is. Then you have a very short metadata file describing this cabinet file, things like the public key hash, the name of the package file, and other data that could be parsed out if you were to maybe automate something like this. This cabinet file has the meats. I swear, these things are huge. We'll see how many files one of these contains in a few slides. But the PSFX cab file is the one you're after when you're trying to do these patch diffs, or you're trying to do a patch extraction. So what the hell is a PSFX? PSF stands for patch storage files, and I'm guessing the X is express. That's a shot in the dark based on this white paper. If you haven't read this white paper, it's sort of interesting, and it covers some of the things I'm going to cover. Microsoft, it's funny because when I was doing this research initially, there are 2 documents I'm going to mention. One is this one, this PSFX white paper, and the other is the documentation for the APIs that are used to do the patch deltas. And neither of them are Googleable. Like, you have to really try hard to Google them. I had to find them through like nested links, three layers deep somehow. So they're here, they're interesting, and they have a lot of the details I'm going to be going over. So these PSFX cabinet files contain literally tens of thousands of files, right? Like if I just do a top level ls on the extracted MSU or the extracted PSFX cab file, I have over 34,000 files, and this is for Windows 2004. Like this is like earlier this year's release. That's the update that you apply to that version of Windows. I mean, the ones that are for like 1903 or 1809 are pretty small still because of the deltas, but they can get, they can have a lot of files in them, and we'll see when it gets over a certain threshold that, I mean, I would guess it's probably 65535 because that's just like, magic number in terms of computers, right? You start to have this split up into multiple cab files nested underneath. So it's a lot. It takes a while to load it. I do this. I have to do this when I do extractions. I do them on my local machine on a VM on my Mac, and then I zip it up and then move it over to my NAS. So if I try to extract these on my NAS, it takes like a year. Or if I try to extract it and then copy it without zipping it first, it takes another year. So if you're going to do this, zip them first. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Cab creation utility probably can't handle more than 0xFFFF files. That's my conjecture, not actual documentation. So these things are freaking huge. What if it's on a Threadripper? Well, I mean, I'm bottlenecking at the storage, so I don't care. My network is okay. I'm currently getting internet. I have internet in my room on the second floor of my house. There's a basement, so third floor. My internet's in the basement, and I'm running a coax. There's a coax cable that runs out, connects to this little box in my room, and that's how I'm getting internet right now. So, coax never dies. Don't buy a house from the 70s. It's not worth it. So again, looking at expand.exe, it actually, obviously it expands archives. It's the study of Wumbo. So expand.exe, as any good Windows command would have, you have /?, for help. So check that out. It's got a couple of different things. And probably the most important option is /f. You can specify regex. So if you just want, say, NTOS kernel.exe, you can just do *NTOS kernel.exe for file, and then you pull that right out. You don't have to extract the whole thing. So kind of useful there. So it takes positional arguments, the MSU, and then a destination dir. You can do dot as the destination directory. You can also, what I usually do is I just extract the whole thing. So /f : and then the patch, and then the destination dir. And it can take, I think it takes about 10 minutes usually for these to expand. So they're pretty big. One more thing here. Again, I said sometimes you'll find that some of these have nested cabs. The script I'm going to introduce soon, it handles that, so don't worry about it. So you'll have inside your PSFX cab, your top-level PSFX cab, you'll have cab 1 for KB-PSFX, cab 2, cab 3, however many it takes. The Windows 10 1903 update that I downloaded for, I think it was this month, had 3 of them. So just kind of interesting. And just extract them all into the same directory in order to get the fully expanded stuff. So here's a lot of colors. I'm sorry if you're colorblind. I actually didn't think about that until literally just now, but they're just the different sections. So we got when you extract the PSFX cabinet or the cabinets that are nested, you'll get a bunch of folders and files that look like this, and they're horrible. So first we've got the platform. We'll go more into these soon, but we got the platform, the component, the subcomponent. So this would be user32.dll, the public key token that you'll be able to find in the .manifest file, which we'll talk about, the version, the language, and then I don't know what this last thing is. I haven't actually been able to find it. It's probably like a file hash or something, the first part of a file hash. If you can answer that question, I'll give you $1. So for each one of these folders, and there's probably a few hundred of these folders that correspond to each different component within the OS. Sometimes you'll see like AMD64_Hyper-V dash some component, and then the rest of that information. You'll get a .manifest file explaining what's in that folder and how to apply that patch. For the most part, they're one-to-one mapping. Every folder should have a corresponding manifest file. There's some extra manifests. I really haven't figured out what they do or why they're there, but that's beside the point. Again, I'll give you $1 if you can figure that one out and tell me. We're just doing research by like microtransaction donations. Like, let's do that. Let's Security Practice and Research Microtransaction Association. So if you go into one of these folders, right? I click on, AMD, Microsoft, Windows, User32, blah, 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 bullshit. I'm going to get either full files, so like user32.dll. Okay, that's a full DLL. Or a series of folders. And so those folders are going to be for the Delta updates. And they're very specifically named, and they're sort of deceitful. And we'll talk about it. Dogecoin for research. Yes. Again, manifest files, kind of interesting. If you go in there, they describe how to apply a patch. So what file to overwrite, where it's at on the file system, registry keys to add, scheduled tasks, services to start and stop, final hashes for things, all sorts of metadata. There's a ton of stuff. So they're pretty interesting. It's, if you're like me and you just do this stuff because you hate yourself, then you enjoy kind of reading through this stuff. It's interesting to see how the inner workings of it all goes down. Again, I really haven't figured out when they're not one-to-one with patch folders, but yeah. At the end of this, I'll show you a full patch layout and everything. So yeah, that is a pain in the ass. Fuck that shit. Like, no, there's a script for that. We got a script for that. Patch extract.ps1, originally written by Laughing Mantis, aka Greg Linares. He wrote 1.0 through 1.3. And so I updated it to work around a PowerShell bug and also suppress output. So you can download that with the gist below. Again, if you have a link to the presentation in the Discord, then you can just grab that, and you can reach out to me on Twitter or whatever afterwards, and I can send it to you if you need it. It's also just post on my Twitter. There's a blog post that goes along with this talk as well. So this will do a bunch of things for you. Basically, you specify the patch and then the path. I've never really had much luck besides specifying dot, so I just do it in the current directory. And it will extract all that stuff, clean up the file names for you, sort them into directories, and throw out all the junk that you don't need. It's actually really awesome. So instead of having that giant folder with like 30,000 things, you have this junk folder, which has a bunch of files that you don't give a shit about, like the manifest files. If you're interested, you can go in there. The mum and cat files, which are like security things. Then you have your platform folder. So MSIL, WoW64, X64, and X86. These are where your patches, either your full files or your patch files are going to be. And then you also have patch, which is where the original patch is going to get placed, and then also the XML metadata and the first level or corresponding levels, like the cab for the nested cab files. They'll all be in the patch directory, so you can get at them afterwards. It doesn't sort the .txt file. I don't know why, but whatever. But yeah, it definitely cleans stuff up. We'll, at the end, like I said, we'll look at various. We'll look at 2 different patches extracted 2 different ways. So the question is, are the individual files signed within the patch, or is it just the overall patch? Signatures on Windows are really weird. They're like, for a lot of the system files, they're like hosted in a different directory, and not like actually attached to the binary. But for the patch itself, I believe the whole package is signed, and I don't know about the individual parts. I know the whole package is definitely, Microsoft validates it, but I don't know about the individual parts. I don't think so, but don't take my word on that. That's actually, again, if you figure out the answer to that question, I will give you $1, or I will donate $1, or I will donate $2 to the SPARSA fund, whatever Zach talked about. So moving on from like examining a patch, figuring out, what the hell is this thing and why am I going through it? By the 30,000th file, you're sort of like, I don't want to do this anymore. But, that script makes things a lot easier. So kind of the interesting part about this talk, in my opinion, are the last 2 parts. So the first part here is patch deltas. Why does Microsoft not distribute the whole binary? Well, they can distribute patch files, which are the Delta files, which are a lot smaller, and they can just apply them. So that PSFX white paper is actually really interesting. And then I also have another link that's going to link to the APIs for the interfaces where you can actually do this stuff. If anybody here played RETSec CTF last year, there was a challenge there's 2 challenges, one called Patch Tuesday and the other one called Patch 2 S-Day, because I effed up and I accidentally put the flag in the original version for the first one. But the second one, you actually had to go and figure out the MS Delta API and then apply a patch to a file and get the flag out of that. So this research was kind of done around then and then written to a blog post and now into a talk. And so patch deltas are sort of my main focus of interest here. And then how do I make use of them to apply them to binaries in order to do binary diff? So what the hell? So when you go into one of those ridiculously named folders, AMD _ Microsoft Windows user 32, blah, 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 you may see, again, full binaries, or you'll see the F, R, or N, which are confusing at first. And they really stand for forward, reverse, and null differentials. So forward differential and a reverse differential are always paired together. Basically, the reverse differential takes the binary from the current version, the version that is in that package, and it will revert it back to the 0.1 version. So that's the binary diff. Basically, it's a binary diffing format where you can apply it, and it'll bring it back to the 0.1 version. The forward differential is applied to the 0.1 version to bring it forward to the most up-to-date version. And so you can go forward and backwards to the most up-to-date version and the 0.1 version. N is kind of special. This is something that I've, the function of which I've mistaken once or twice. I believe the slides are still wrong in 760. I need to fix that. But a null differential, you can actually apply it to a blank buffer, and it'll unpack a whole binary. And you may be asking yourself, well, I thought you said that there were whole binaries in the updates. Well, yeah, there are. For some reason, I have no idea why. And when I'm talking about binaries, I'm really talking about anything. Like, they do this to images. Like PNGs have patch deltas to them. I don't know why they do that, but like they ship PNGs and other image files and like text files and things like that, and they do the differentials on them, and they'll ship them. No idea why. Hopefully I haven't lost you yet. So this link at the bottom is hard to Google for. It's hard to find. I was looking for it, and the documentation on this stuff is so little. I think when you Google I'll talk about that actually when I talk about the patch delta format. So we have two APIs here. Patch API is the older one. It only works on 32-bit x86 executables, unfortunately, and so it's for older versions of Windows. It's not as efficient. MS Delta was released around Vista and supports Vista and up, and is what they use today. And it's using these functions: create delta, apply delta, get delta info, get the signature, etc. And this supports not only like just regular binary diffing or binary patching. This supports like export table, import table, sections, like various like features of these different binary types. So like specific like DLLs, there's like special ways to patch like the code section or the data section or the imports, whatever. So that's kind of neat. It's like a specialized technology for shipping mostly binaries, but it also does work on raw files in contrast to the patch API, which does not. And so you'll find that functionality inside of msdelta.dll, where patch API has them split into two. So when you look at one of these, and again, look at the directory here. This is the non-clean version. This is the one I extracted by hand. I'm using XXD and dumping out the first 10 lines of this output here. I'm grabbing, this disgusting AMD 64 blah 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 user 32. F for the forward differential, user32.dll. Again, these files get named something.dll, and you're like, oh, that's the DLL. You don't install that on your system directly, or else you'll break it, because that's not a DLL. It's this weird file. This is not an MZ header. This is some weird characters and then PA30, whatever the hell that means. So when I first was looking at this, I was like, nope, not that. That was end. Sorry about that. So when I was looking at that, I was like, what the fuck is this? What PA30? When you Google PA30 Microsoft patch, right currently, I have two of the first page. Like, I'm not right at the top, but I have two of the results on the first page because there's that little documentation. I found like the patent for this technology, and then like on this page for the documentation for the compression archive, there's a mention of PA19. I mean, a sane person that looks at binary stuff, kind of a contradiction there, would say, well, PA30. Probably sounds like file magic, right? It's probably file magic. But what are those first 4 bytes? Like, that's not documented anywhere. Who put that there? It doesn't apply. Like, I was trying to use the APIs, and I was trying to apply the patch to the buffer, to the file, and it just failed. What the hell? Okay. So what are those bytes? PA30, we know what that is. So what I decided to do was just throw them out. So basically, I just ignored those 4 bytes. I just cut them off, applied it with the API, and then they're basically useless. And then it applied just fine. And the weird thing there is that, like, this is not documented anywhere. Like, Microsoft just does this, and they just don't put it anywhere. And so I stared at this for like a good 3 hours, and I was like, what? Who did this? And so I can think of, and I asked myself the question, after I figured it out, I asked myself the question, what kinds of things are 4 bytes and almost entirely useless for functionality? Does anybody have any ideas that didn't see the slide? Anybody that's still out there? Yeah, it fails applying if you don't remove those 4 bytes. Any ideas about something that's 4 bytes? Comments? If you don't know, that's fine. This was something that I just came out of nowhere. So it actually turns out that the first 4 bytes is CRC32. It's a CRC32 of the rest of the file. Yeah, because fuck me, right? So yeah, and it changes every file. I should have mentioned that beforehand. It changes every file. So if you actually go and look, if you import zlib and then do a CRC32 on the first 4 bytes of the file, sure enough, 46b6 2f74. And so if we go back, yeah, 46b6 2f74. Fuck you, Microsoft. Throw my computer in the trash. So on my adventure to apply these deltas to files and get useful DLLs out of them, we have to do something. We have to apply the reverse differential to get back to the 0.1 version. But the problem is that included reverse differential, the included reverse differential actually doesn't work. Like if I try to apply the reverse differential onto my version in System32, it fails. It yells at me and it's like, hey, that doesn't work. So your computer actually keeps the forward and reverse differentials, and sometimes and often the full binaries for things inside of C:/Windows Win SXS. So it stands for Windows side by side. We'll talk about that in a second. So you will apply the reverse differential from your system, and then the forward differential on top of that in order to get the fully patched version of this file, or apply the null differential to a blank buffer. So this has been around, and there's so many things in Windows. Like I just ordered some books on COM because I hate myself. Not a cry for help. But Win SXS has been around since Windows 98 and Windows 2000. So originally, its purpose was to alleviate this DLL hell thing, where you'd have different, a program would depend on a different version of a DLL than you had on your system. So basically, they've adapted it to kind of have these reverse and forward differentials. So when a patch gets installed to your system, it'll actually dump those really annoyingly named folders into C:/Windows Win SXS. So if you go right now, if you're on a Windows machine, go to that directory, look, and those really annoyingly named files are there, and you'll see the, if you go into some of them, there's full binaries and the F and the R directories for different patch levels. So check that out, kind of cool. I found this out, it took me a while to figure this out. I was trying to apply the reverse differentials on top of the reverse differentials included with the cumulative updates on top of the current binary, and it wasn't working. And I was like, what the hell? These should be the reverse differentials, but no, your computer saves them off. It'll also contain the full binary. So for instance, NTOS kernel will have the F and the R directory, and then the current version of NTOS kernel, and then usually an older version there as well. And that's also another good point. It's useful if you are going to go try to find the old binaries. You can go there and try to find some old binaries to diff without doing all this nonsense. So deltapatch.py, I wrote a script that basically interacts with the Windows API. Sorry, Linux folks, it only works on Windows. I trust, again, that you know how to get a hold of a Windows VM somehow. And this will allow you to apply patch files to in sequence. So you can apply as many patches as you want. I have another tool laying around on GitHub somewhere that creates patch files from an old and a new version as well, if you want to play with that. And this also works with the legacy patch API. So actually doing the patch. So when we want to apply, we run the script. You see input file user32.dll, output onto a different file because I'm not trying to patch over the running version. You can't even do that. And then I'm going on this. I'm going on this giant stupid directory inside, again, Windows Win SXS. And then applying the reverse differential to get back to the 0.1 version. and then it'll apply the patches and give us the hash. This is the same hash you'll find in the manifest as well. It's a SHA-256. Yeah, I covered that stuff already. So again, remember that updates contain all the changes since base. So if I download October and I download November's patches for this year for a version, you may find that you get the same version included. And that is the case with user 32. So I chose something else to diff because the two that I grabbed had the exact same user 32.dll patch, so nothing useful for me. So between November and October, we got the kernel version 6.3.1 and 6.10. And so after applying a reverse differential, we can apply the month's update. So I applied the reverse differential and then October's update, and then I apply the reverse differential and November's update. And I'll actually get two different binaries that are ready to have a diff. I could have written it in Go. Really, there are other approaches, right? Obviously, update, like grab a binary, update the system, grab the binary again. Not rocket science, but hopefully the tools I provided make it easy to kind of replicate this stuff, just downloading the patches. And if you don't have a WinXSS, I can't say those letters next to each other. If you don't have a Windows box, you don't have those patches or that version of Windows, and you're trying to do a diff, you can download earlier cumulative updates to grab those reverse differentials for the current version that you may have gotten a hold of. Whatever works best, just do it. Win sexes, yes, very, very good. So I'm not going to go too much in diffing. That's a whole separate talk, and we deal a lot with that in 760. So I'm just going to go over like what you would potentially do and kind of an intro to patch diffing. Not too long. I want to give time for the give time for the panel. I know I'm already over my time, and I apologize for that. So I'll finish up quick. So why patch diffing? Like, why would you bother with patch diffing? Like, oh, it's already been patched. Well, again, what did I say? Not everybody applies the patch on day one, obviously, right? Sometimes we're still dealing with like Blue Keep and shit like that. Like, people don't patch. Businesses are bad at patching. IT departments are bad at patching and underfunded and all that. A bunch of you guys work in this field. You know that. I don't have to tell you. So end days are still worth money. You can find a bug and weaponize it, or like find the bug, find where it was patched, and weaponize it quickly. You can sell it. You can still sell it, or do your own research. And you kind of get a sense about how Microsoft patches stuff over time as you look at these things. If you were to try to find a bug, if you heard like, oh, so-and-so got something and something got patched, and you knew what binary it was, wouldn't it really suck to have to go through every function and try to figure out what the hell they were talking about? When you could, it literally, like, patch diffing just tells you what bytes have changed and what instructions have changed. Jared, I'll get to your question in just a sec. That's actually part of the slides. And if you have an existing exploit, things change between versions. You may be able to use diffing to quickly port and quickly find addresses of similar things when you're dealing with existing exploits and maybe you don't have symbols for something, and you've gone, and this leads to my next point, where you've gone really hard, you've done a bunch of reverse engineering and you've named a bunch of functions in IDA, and then a new version comes out and you have to start all over. Some of these diffing tools will actually allow you to import symbols and comments from IDBs and put them into other ones. So pretty good. So diffing tools, the two main ones that I like are bindiff and diaphora. Diaphora is written in Python. It's a lot slower than bindiff. Bindiff is now free, used to be paid. Google bought Dynamics and then made bindiff free, didn't open source it though. It works with a bunch of different tools. So there's a Ghidra plugin. There's a link here to a Ghidra plugin for bindiff. It takes its own format. I forget the format off the top of my head, but it has a dump file that it has and will do the diffs on, and it has its own separate interface. While diaphora relies on the disassembler itself, Joshin Koret is trying to remove some of that from some of that dependency on IDA to port to something like Ghidra is his first project, and then Binary Ninja after that. But you know, it's got some interesting features, and don't quote me on this, but it may work with IDA free, because you can kind of hack things up to install IDA Python on IDA free and get it working, while bindiff C++ plugins won't work. So no warranties implied there. So diffing the kernel, basically, you know, this is just going through the bindiff interface. You know, open the newer version, let analysis complete, close it. Closing it's important. Bindiff will fail otherwise. Open the older version, let the analysis complete, file bindiff, select the new IDB, and then wait. If it's big files, like I was diffing something that took 10 minutes to diff before, so you just got to give it some time, and then you'll get some results. So bindiff and diaphora have similar interfaces. You'll actually be able to see matched functions is your probably best friend. This is potential matches between two files. It's not an exact science, but you have primary and secondary unmatched, which are things that exist in the primary and not the secondary, and the secondary and not the primary. And this whole process works a lot better when you have symbols. So if you can hit the Microsoft symbol store, and symbols exist for your file that you're diffing, which they should for all the official Microsoft updates, except for a couple things that they're annoying about, then you should be good to go. It should pretty closely identify stuff. So in IDA, this is what bindiff looks like. You got a couple tabs here: secondary, primary, unmatched, statistics, and matched functions. You can see that the similarity, I sorted by similarity here, and only one function has changed: mi hot add partition memory. And we can go and right click on that and view flow graphs to get to the bindiff interface, which is a Java interface. Proximity browsing sucks, so turn it off in the view menu. And the combined view is actually really cool, and I'll show that on the next slide as well. And again, this is a standalone interface that'll pop up. This is a bindiff interface. This is one of the changes from that mi hot add partition memory function. So you can see here, yellow blocks are changed. So we've added 2 instructions here, and then the gray blocks are added, and then red blocks are removed, and then green blocks are unchanged. And sometimes you kind of have to watch out. There are some kind of caveats here and gotchas. It's not exact science. So sometimes it'll, if a jump of 0, jump of not 0 flips, it'll interpret it as a diff. So you got to watch out for that. Use multiple tools if you're unsure. Bindiff by default terminates functions at multi-byte nops. So when I was diffing tcp/ip.sys for the bad neighbor bug, the IPv6 bug that happened pretty recently, it was effing up my bindiff results because there was multi-byte nops after our calls, and so it would just like nuke bindiff. So you got to watch out for those kinds of things. And matches will be wrong. Like sometimes you'll just get matches that are just completely wrong. So find matches that you know are good, and then use cross references and like kind of common sense and kind of your intuition to match things up. As always, practice makes perfect. And I can't afford IDA. Well, yeah, well, I know nobody can. It's shitty. I mean, it's like for 2 decompilers, x86, 64 and 32-bit, and the IDA Pro license for a named personal license, it's $6,000. It's over $6,000. So like a year. That's $6,000, and then it's $2,500 a year for renewals. It's absurd. But if you do this stuff for a living and you find and sell bugs, like that's not too bad, especially if you can find some good ones. Ghidra is really good. I have a talk on Ghidra that I did last year as well. So, what the hell did you say? I've got a blog post on this. So I published this a few months ago. This is not necessarily old news, but just it's condensed into blog format. There's a couple more details in there's a couple more details in the blog post, and there's some details I didn't put in the blog in this presentation. So kind of compare both. Yeah. So thanks for listening. Next time I've got a talk, I'm publishing a blog post very soon, hopefully by the end of next week. Middle end of next week on kernel virtual address shadow and supervisor mode execution prevention in Windows, and kind of how that works on the internals. So if you like Windows internals, then that is the presentation for you. Hopefully I'll be able to do that in the next couple months at a SPARSA meeting. And The question is, do you have the script to diff the presentation in the blog post? No, I don't have a script for that. But if you want to write one, I will donate $2 to SPARSA's tax haven. This slide is taken directly from that presentation I gave a couple years ago. So if there are any questions, I'm going to give it back to these guys after I show you the directory structure. Again, like I said, I'm sorry for running over, but I figure technical content is sort of the point here. Hopefully the panel isn't mad at me. So just to give you an idea, in case the text on the slides wasn't descriptive enough, here is I'll give you the layout from October, which I manually extracted. So we have this Windows KB, blah, blah, blah. You get this MSU file. I extracted it with expand.exe.
Jamie, can you double check your input?
Yeah, one sec. For some reason, when I switch screens, Discord just like gives up. So let me change window here. There we go. How's that? Is that better?
That looks better.
Sweet. Okay, so I've got two patches next to each other. This is from last month, and this is from this month's Patch Tuesday, cumulative update for this version of Windows. We've got the MSU file here. I expanded it out with expand.exe into ext. You can see we've got the PSFX cab, WSUScan, the package properties. No, don't do that. Package properties, again, is basically this really short file describing the metadata here of this package in key equals value format. And then you have patch. And so when I expand the patch out, here's what we get. Get these horribly named files. We get all these manifest files. We get like cat and mum files, which are like security descriptor stuff. I believe someone asked a question on signatures earlier. I believe that's what these are. So individual files being signed. So yes, it does have security or signatures for each file as well, is the whole package. And you can see here that there's these files, these manifest files, and then also corresponding folders. So if I go into one of these, let me look for OS kernel. So that's kind of the example I was using before. LMNO. Oh man, OS kernel, here we go. You can see we have an F and an R. F and R, NTOS kernel.exe, not actually an exe, that's just a diff file. And then, so that's the layout for a non-patch extracted version. If I go to patches, this is the one I used patch extract for. Finding that same thing, basically go to x64, and then I can find OS-kernel, and that's a lot nicer to look at. It's a lot easier to find in that giant list. And then it tosses all the junk inside of here. So, yeah. So there's that. Try some of this stuff on your own. Again, some more details are on my blog. But definitely hit me up with questions. I'm on Twitter at JGeigerM. It's at the beginning of the talk. I hope the VOD's up so people can rewatch this after the fact. I haven't checked for questions on Discord or on Twitch. One sec. Yes, hello. Yeah. So hopefully you got some knowledge out of this. It's cool. I mean, you have to be a certain type of person to enjoy this kind of stuff, but I think this is pretty neat. It's not documented anywhere, so I like finding shit out that's not documented anywhere. So thanks everybody for listening. I'll post the job listings up for Grim right now inside of the Discord. So if you're not part of the Discord, people have been posting the Discord in the Twitch chat like the whole time. So yeah, there you go. Nightbot on it. That's all from me. Thank you all for listening, and thanks for letting me be your first speaker of the SPARSA main series. That's what we'll call it.
Hell yeah. Thanks, Jamie.
Yeah.
We're going to quickly reshuffle into our panel conversation here. I think we're good.
Can you hear me?
Oh, yeah.
Oh,
yep.
Perfect.
Absolutely.
All right, let's go through our list. But before we do that, can everyone else hear me? Let's get something on the feed. Can we see a comment, possibly unadulterated? There we go. No, perfect. Exactly what I wanted to hear. Yep. And what? Awesome. So let me be the first to welcome you all to the first of its kind, a panel discussion. You've probably never heard of the concept before, but we have a number of experts from industry at various levels. And this is pretty much the reason that we have the mature audiences only banner put in front of this, also known as this month's panel. Also known as generic white guy names panel, because with us today, we have Zach, Travis, and Andy. So excluding myself, this is going to be very inappropriate. Anywho, I'm going to back away from my mic just a little bit. Hopefully you guys can hear me. But today's title of the panel is going to be InfoSec Horror Stories. So I'm going to pass it off to, let's start with Zach Baer, and he'll introduce himself. And you folks can feel free to jump onto your cameras if you want. Otherwise, just let my beautiful face embrace. Take it away, Zach.
Okay. Hi, I'm Zach, otherwise known as Zubian, and I am a sort of IT support / system administrator / network engineer as a federal contractor supporting the Federal Protective Services, one of their many dispatch centers. I also am a DEF CON goon and run a number of B-sides or support a number of B-sides in the greater DC area and also B-sides Las Vegas. And also am a admin for the other very popular security community, Dead Pixel Sec. Highly recommend.
All right, that sounds good. I'm going to give you your own introduction, which is this is Zach. He's the best thing since Win SSX that this particular presentation will have this year. And with that, I'm going to pass it over to Travis. Travis, take it away.
All right, thanks, Heim. My name is Travis, and I run Okta's offensive security team. So I've been at Okta for almost 7 years now, so it's quite a while. Previously, I've been at Amazon on their security team, as well as Booz Allen, going and doing pen tests against all sorts of government entities. So it's been a long time. I've done lots of stuff. Primarily right now, I'm focused on security architecture, web app testing, and local vulnerability hunting. So that's kind of what I'm up to now.
Cool. That's awesome. And to give you your little slogan, Travis, his charm is the most infectious thing since the coronavirus. And with that, we've played Spot the Fed enough. Let's pass it over to Andy. Andy, give us an introduction.
Hey, how's it going? I'm Andy. I'm a senior security engineer at Slack at the moment. Prior to Slack, I spent about 4 years at Box doing security automation. And prior to that, I was unfortunate to be in the MSSP meat grinder SOC world. So yeah, these days it's mostly building tools and then supporting them.
Cool, that's awesome. Andy is so fat, PH, that he makes bacon look like a health food. So with that in mind, I want to give you each an open invitation to talk about any openings that you might have on your team, any positions that might be available. Really what I'm saying here is if you have referral bonuses for your organization, now's the time to pimp your ride. Go ahead, take it away, Andy, and we'll go backwards.
Yeah, at the moment we're kind of building up a like a customer protection team, so doing like sort of data analytics to try to identify weird usage patterns of Slack that could indicate compromised accounts or accounts being used for like malicious things like C2, malware distribution, that kind of stuff. So we've got a junior role open. We already filled the senior role, so we got a junior role on that.
Cool, that sounds like a plan. My name is Junior sometimes from time to time, depending on who is asking, but let me pass it off to his charmulous, Travis Mora. Take it away, Travis.
Thank you, Haim. So we just filled two principal roles, and I have I guess I have one senior role left on my team. So primarily looking at someone who is able to kind of dive deep into not just pen testing, but also architecture, SAML spec, OADC, find out where people are doing things wrong. So it's a little bit of both. So I have one role open myself.
That sounds awesome. If you're playing Buzzword Wingo at home, you just got a few empty tiles for SAML and OIDC. Zach, tell me about yourself, Mr. WinSXS. Jamie's right. That's really difficult. I can't do that on a regular basis. All right. What do you got open, if anything?
So I believe we currently have a open system administrator position, among other positions. Feel free to DM me or go to chartisfederal.com. Yeah.
All right. It sounds like you could slide into Zach's DMs whenever you want. I'm going to start this off with a little bit of an interesting question just to get the palate wet, just to see what's going on. I just want to hear, let's start with from Zach. Zach, when was the last time that something really terrible happened at work? And what was that terrible thing?
The last time something terrible happened at work was probably when I think I locked myself out. I permissioned myself out of something. But I think the worst thing that's happened was when I was early on in the role that I'm currently in, supporting the Federal Protective Service, and we were upgrading their dispatch operator log software. It's a SQL-based tool, and like, okay, they gave me the installer, and I'm like, okay, I'll install it on everything. But I didn't have the creds to log into the application to confirm it worked. So I figured out I was able to log into because I was an administrator, I was able to log into the database and then show the users table, and all the passwords were hashed like a good custom application. But I noticed most of the users had the same hash, like users who use the application, and there was a administrator account named administrator account. So the next day I asked one of the users that I knew used the application what their password was, because their password hash was the same as the administrator password hash.
As you do, you just ask people what their passwords are. That makes sense. Keep going.
I mean, when you're the admin and users are dumb, I don't know. But yeah. So I asked them what their password was, and they gave me essentially what was the default password for the application, because a number of users did not change their password.
Yikes. Pretty common problem, pretty common solution. I mean, obviously, all those passwords have been reset. I should mention here that we are trying, or we may, depending on what goes on here, keep the anonymous of the guilty protected so that they can remain guilty in their own, in their own capabilities. But that's pretty rough, and hopefully I can give this same question over. Let's start with Andy. Andy, what's your password?
It's I'm getting some feedback. It's
that's my fault.
The good old change me 2011 bang. Hi,
Yeah, I'm more of a NetSys man myself, but that's also a good one. I also love God and password. So with that in mind, Andy, tell me about a time that you identified kind of a systemic issue and how you addressed that problem, if at all.
identified a systemic issue and how we fixed it.
Yeah, if you did, I mean, maybe Slack is so awesome that there's no problems there. Let's start with maybe MSSPX is so awesome that there's no problems there. And tell me about a time that there was maybe an issue that maybe hurt some people, or maybe hurt some people.
So that's a good question. I don't know if it really fits systemic, but it's a fairly common problem over the last couple of years where people are all using this cloud hotness stuff, and then they don't configure it correctly, and that leaves potentially valuable data open to the internet. And so, man, I can't remember exactly how it was identified now, but in any case, it was identified that a new VPC in AWS was set up with full internet access, the old quad 0/0 access. And this particular VPC was a data lake luckily it didn't have any user data in it yet. It was in the process of being built when it was caught. However, the intention for this data lake was to contain message data for Slack, and or rather for Slack. Nothing get exposed, so it was okay. But it definitely was a one of those hair on fire moments where you're like, oh God, what's in this VPC? We know it's owned by the data engineering team, so that's not a good sign from the start. And so it was kind of an issue that got fixed. Well, it was an issue that was found, but it was found the way it was supposed to be. Proper external scanning of our known infrastructure, identifying systems that should not have been available, and then, going through the proper, break the glass, lock everything down, figure out what's in this VPC, etc., working with the proper teams. So.
Cool. That's a good story. And from now on, maybe we should just try and stick with Oracle. Oracle is the company name that has always been the butt of all these jokes until we have someone from Oracle sponsoring or on this panel. Then it will be too real. All right, I'll move a similar question over rather to Travis. Travis, what's kind of the worst thing you've ever caused yourself or observed? You can vary it up and refer to people who you hate. Anything's good. Tell me what you're thinking.
Nice. So this was back in my Booz Allen days when I was testing.
I think you mean Oracle.
Some networks. Yes, in my Oracle consulting days. And so we were on engagement, and we decided to ARP spoof while in a data center. So I forgot to be very specific in what I was ARP spoofing, so I ARP spoofed the gateway, and on a 10 gigabit network, I actually brought the entire customer down. So that was the biggest oops I've ever made while on an engagement. And so luckily, they rebooted most of their equipment and got back up in a few hours. But there was no they didn't have any customers buying things. Let's just say. So it was it wasn't a monetary loss, but it was a pretty big oops on my part.
That's a pretty good oops indeed. I mean, on the bright side, Oracle probably has so much money that it's not worth the problem. But let me ask a kind of separate question. What is the worst vulnerability you've ever found in a production system? This one's going to be for all three of you. We'll start with Travis. Give it some time to think about. Worst vulnerability you've ever seen, not necessarily found yourself, but that Jira ticket comes rolling on in and you're like, holy crap, there's a Windows XP with MS08067 and it's 2022. What am I going to do? Go ahead, Travis, take it away.
All right. So I think the worst vulnerability I've ever seen was on a SAP system where they were like, it's super secure.
I think you mean
super
Oracle system. No, it doesn't work here. Keep going.
Isn't that actually owned by... So it was on SAP system. And so they were like, yeah, this is going to be a boring test. And so as we were testing it, we realized that not only did they lock it down really hard, but they left open like a developer port, and we were able to. And the vulnerability ended up just being complete compromise. But it wasn't just of one. This was a centralized system, so it was you uploaded your war file with your backdoor, and we got thousands of shells back because it spread it across like the world. So it was that was probably the worst vulnerability I've ever seen in my life.
That seems very efficient, honestly. Not even that bad. I'm pretty impressed. I'm not even mad. All right, let's toss it to Andy, and we'll go backwards this way. What do you think, Sir Bacon?
Sir Bacon. Man, that's really a tough one. Oh man, I just had something too, and then it kind of
Do you want us to
down.
switch over to Zach? You can come back. He looks like he's primed and ready. He's about to say, like, I actually saw MS-08067 last week. It was on Final Jeopardy.
If you're primed and ready, Zach, go for it. I'm still kind of thinking here.
Take it away, Zach. It's the big microphone.
Yeah. Does having an active in production connected to the internet via dial-up modem box with Windows 98 count?
That sounds a lot like Oracle to me. Yeah, I think it does count. Yeah. So was that actually exploited, or was that just something that was found and people were like, dial-up seems old hat?
No, it's a currently active thing.
As you do, you never know when you're in Estonia and need a dial-up modem to get back to the US via VPN-ish type PPP.
It's for other reasons, but sure, that.
Fair enough. Prawn is always a good reason to have a dial-up sitting in the background. I'm there with that. Let's pass it over to Andy. Andy, what have you come up with, if anything?
Yeah, I mean, so it's not really like a vulnerability in that like an unpatched server sitting on the network somewhere, but the previous company, we'll say Oracle, we we got hit prior to Google. These days, when you try to install like an application in your G Suite environment, like you can lock it down pretty well and say like this has to be approved or it can't have certain permissions, stuff like that. But before they changed that stuff, we got hit by somebody installed something that basically just scraped their whole inbox and emailed itself to everybody else. It was like a Google Apps worm, and it was pretty bonkers for about 8 hours, damage controlling, figuring out what the hell had happened. And eventually we realized, and it was very benign. It seemed almost like somebody was testing an idea for a thing, but it didn't have anything malicious in it. It was just seeing if it would work, and it did. Gangbusters.
And that December 25th at 11:59 p.m., you grew a lot that day. You learned that people don't give a shit about your personal life or about the security person on the other end of the sock. They just want to see the world burn. All right, so let's move on to a really interesting story. We just mentioned the vendor who was Oracle, and that was a great vendor. But what other vendors have you had that you were positively, absolutely like, if I was to go back and do this again, I would say no? What was your most favorite no you've ever given to any organization? Or maybe it's not you didn't give the no, but you just were like, this is the worst vendor I've ever seen. Let's start with Zach there on the left or right or middle, depending on who you are, and we'll move the other direction around depending on who you are.
Okay. I think the only no I've given was for, I think we were for my company, corporate, we were comparing DNS protection suites, and we were comparing endpoint monitoring. And this is from a perspective of having one to 2 to 0 people doing it, while having those people that might be doing it be slightly technical and having good control, but good dashboards and good automation, like just automagically, to be able to handle if essentially next gen antivirus with a dashboard and everything. Hey, you chuckle, but you know I'm right. It's kind of necessary in a small company.
Anyone's playing bingo at home, next gen antivirus. That's another one on the list for you right there. And
It is, but
UEM will go right to the next bingo slot.
But when you're looking at more than just signature matching and like you're looking at heuristics, it's like the buzzword term that everyone understands. So it works.
Yeah, let's burn our industry to the ground with fire. I agree.
Fire's great.
Firewalls, sir. Firewalls. All right, so it sounded like you ended up purchasing this vendor. Go ahead, tell me more.
Yeah, so we were looking at Cisco, and who else were we looking at? Mimecast, which was our email provider, or our email security provider, and a few others. And I'm trying to remember who we ejected, but there was a few others that were way more aggressive. And we ended up ejecting them and going with, I would have to look it up, but we ended up going with Cisco. And then I ended up learning that a bunch of my friends hate Cisco.
It's pretty easy to hate Cisco when you've owned their stock for 20
really
years.
is. But
actually, Cisco's at pretty much an all-time high, so I really I just don't own any stock.
But right, we so liked it.
No one ever got fired for choosing Cisco. I like that as a startup for this talk. Let's move over to the left. Let's start with Travis. He hasn't spoken in a while. Travis, what product, what vendor, what person at a vendor do you hate so much that you would just throw them into a deep fryer if there was a Wendy's nearby?
Dang. So I guess I wasn't really thinking on this one too hard. There's only been a few vendors that I've really not liked. One of those was Forescout. I had a project years ago. I had a client, and we were implementing Forescout for NAC, and it was just such a terrible piece of crap. Maybe it's gotten better, but like it was horrible. And what we realized was it was running. So we took it apart, of course. And it was running an ancient version of InMap, so it was using all this open source tools and stuff, and it was just totally busted, and it was like 100K upgrade for some more RAM. So we were like, well, because this is physical appliances, so we just like got a bunch of spare parts and did like $1.5 million upgrade and like 20K in hardware. And made it ran better, but like when we talked to the vendor, they were just like, well, we can't upgrade this stuff. Like we don't use the newest stuff. So I mean, it was just a terrible experience overall. So I would say they're one of my companies that, like, if someone recommended them, I'd be like, anyone but them.
Not only do they sound like Foreskin, which is probably pretty awful, but yeah, zero upgrade capability. What are they, Apple? All right, so let's move on. I'm surprised, Andy, you didn't spit out your drink if you would take him out. But Andy, tell me about your worst vendor, and then we're going to move on to a fun question. Hopefully it shouldn't challenge any of you. And then we'll move on to the last part of this, and we'll be done for the night. What do you think, Andy?
ESET. Worst vendor. Like 2 for 2 now on companies that used ESET and hard migrated away. It doesn't detect anything worthwhile. The APIs for it are sort of non-existent. They hand you an SO file and say, here, hook into the SO file. That's your API. And it's just like your head explodes because that's not a modern technology.
Yeah, that sounds right. I almost thought you said CrowdStrike there for a second, but then you just described everything that was CrowdStrike, and it was the same. No? Throwing too much shade? All right, I won't do that. So let's jump into a little bit of a more fun question. This is going to be our last question before we start talking about like how to progress your InfoSec careers a little bit. I'm interested to hear about that from you all. But what if you were a protocol, what protocol would you be, Andy? Tell me what you think and why.
Oh, damn. That's a that's an interesting question. Probably HTTP, because while I do like sort of plan stuff out and I'm usually good at getting back to people, sometimes I just like disappear and then people have no idea, like, oh, am I waiting for something? Am I not? That's all I got.
Yeah, that makes sense. I mean, most people, when they say HTTP, they'd be like, HTTP because people have built me up so much that no one even knows who I am anymore. It's pretty rough. Yeah, when you come into a room, people are disappointed by your performance and overly cautious about using you for any capabilities. Yeah, no, HTTP is a good one. It's a level 7 protocol for those of you who are playing the OSI model at home. Let's hear from you, Zach. What about you? What do you think?
I don't know. I think I'm probably the HTTP protocol for like go get tea, or the HTTP response. That is a joke response because I'm derpy as fuck.
I can't argue with that based on the answer. I'm like a little bit confused if you know the protocol definition of that was not put forth in the RFC that I read. I think there is a formal RFC for that, right?
There was, if I remember correctly. Yeah, I'm trying to Google it, but yeah. There's a formal RFC.
Yeah, it's like I'm a little teapot or something like that.
Yeah.
Let's go short and stout. Speaking of short and stout, let's move on to Travis Mora. What kind of protocol would you be and why?
I think I'd be UDP because that's an unreliable damn protocol, and people don't know what they get when I walk in. So that's what I'd be.
Cool. I'm getting some feedback to talk like a normal human being. It's a little bit difficult for me because that's just not who I am. I'm going to move on to our last question for our panelists, which is, if you could give one piece of advice to folks who are joining or trying to progress within the InfoSec community, what would that piece of advice be? And it could be don't join Oracle, but it could be something else that's more helpful. Let me know what you think. Let's start with you, Zach.
So I would say find a great community that you can relate with a lot of great people, such as Sparsa or Dead Pixel Sec, or both, where you can surround yourself with people who can help you with job hunting and resume review and just also emotional support outside of that, because especially in a time when we are all severely isolated and we are all looking for connection, having a good community of people who have like-minded technical interests where you can ask questions for help in a work sense, or you are working on a project sense, or resume review, or jobs, but then also people who you can talk about personal things and gaming. Any of that is a great community to have. And that is the biggest thing I found to be the most useful, because then you can get a good resume, then you can, which can help in job postings and mock interviews, and that can lead to help, but also people cheering you on, saying keep it up, good job. And it's little things like that when you are just trying to get through it, even if they aren't your close friends, that can push you to get through it to get that job.
I think that's a great answer. I definitely agree that a community is good and a good community is better, and I can't promise that I'm going to be the good part of that community, but you're certainly in one right now. So with that in mind, I'm going to pass it over to Andy. Andy, what are you thinking about advice that you would give people trying to move up or move in?
Yeah, so Zach kind of stole my answer there, but I figured that out early on, so I started brainstorming a second answer. And the only thing I would add is to the get involved in the community answer is for like post-COVID, when you can do stuff in person again, like find a local community. Like, doing it online is all great, but man, getting out and like going and grabbing a beer with like the local InfoSec people and just chatting about stuff is just a blast, and I miss that. Anyways, for my answer that I brainstormed in the minute and a half or so while Zach was talking about community, I would say this is more towards folks who are trying to get into InfoSec, is like look for those junior roles that do a lot of different things and get you exposure to different areas of security, because like InfoSec is a big heading, but there's a ton of stuff underneath of it, and like chances are there's a lot of those pieces you're not going to really care for. And so if you can find yourself a role that lets you sort of support a lot of those other teams, it'll let you figure out which of those things you actually like to do. And then that can allow you to then like start specializing in that and then sort of move up in that pillar of security, if you will. So
that makes a lot of sense. Thank you for your input, Andy. I want to just make a correction to the note before we move on to Travis, and that is Rusty has pointed out on the chat, Hypertext Coffee Pot Control Protocol, HTCPCP, is the protocol that Zach was referring to, and I apologize for doubting its reality there. RFCs are a hell of a drug. So if you guys haven't noticed on the stream, each of these individuals comes at this from a different level of seniority, so it's interesting to hear what they add. And of course, no one yet, although I'm reserving it for Travis, has said the only thing that matters is money. I'm waiting for that. So Travis, take it away. What do you got?
Well, if you're just starting off, you shouldn't go for the money. You should go for exactly doing something you love or something you're interested in. So my advice is don't be afraid to fail hard. Take responsibility and sacrifice whatever it takes to make it right, because that definitely like builds confidence in your ability when you're just starting out. When people see that you're not like oops and someone else clean up my mess. The other thing I would say is they touched on the community. That's actually a really good way to meet people, and then those people, as you get to know them, will also be a point of reference. Often you can get jobs that are never even open via your community, which is a great resource, especially when you're starting out, because you can avoid the HR shredder where they look at you and go, well, I don't really know you, and you never even make it to the interview. So I can't even say enough about community. The other thing I would say is bug hunting. I make fun of bug hunters occasionally, but like honestly, when you're starting out, it never hurts to get paid. This is Haim's favorite thing. And you're learning at the same time on someone else's system. So I would say that, or you could settle in with some DVL on your own virtual machine, and just kind of get your skills up while networking.
That sounds like a plan. I know for a fact that Okta and Slack both have bug bounty programs. I don't know about you, Zach. Do you guys have bug bounty programs or no? No bug bounty programs in the government.
Well, there are bug bounty programs within certain aspects of the government. I do know that for a fact. Within my company or agency, there are not bug bounty programs.
We'll get you there. Don't worry. The problem is that they can't print enough money to keep up with the amount of bugs y'all would find. So before we kind of
probably fact.
Yeah, probably a fact. Before we call this a day, I first wanted to say thank you to all the presenters. I pretty much asked all of you at the last moment to jump on, And that's why panels are awesome, because they had no idea really what I was going to ask them, clearly by their responses. And I thank you for your patience and your trust in me to completely screw you over and leave you on an edge. But also, I want to encourage anybody who's interested in joining future panels. We'll have different topics every month, and we're looking forward to continuing this mechanism. So if you think you can add something, or your favorite protocol wasn't listed today, that's all good. You can always join and tell me about the beauties of Gopher as we go forward. So one last final shout out to Zach, Travis, and Andy. Thank you very much for being part of the inaugural panel on the worst thing you've seen in InfoSec. And I'll turn it with that back over to Techie or Kirk or Rusty or whomever is taking over the feed.
Join
Thanks,
Ted
Sam.
Bexelsack.
Thanks.
Whoop whoop.
You ever just feel like pulling Zach Allen in here? Oh, damn. Came in himself.
Oh, hey. Are we still live?
We are.
Oh, cool.
You want to do an outro, big guy?
We could do like 5 minutes or so. You want to just jump on video and then we'll close it out?
I'm disgustingly eating a McDonald's sandwich, so no.
You need to get on video right now.
I'm not
You
doing
need to get on. All right, I'm on here with Rusty.
We're on here. Coming in
Cool.
live.
All right.
XSplit VCam.
Yeah, there we go. There we go. Well, thank you everyone that presented tonight. That was awesome. It's good to see everyone hanging in there during all this craziness with COVID. So I guess in terms of announcements, we already have the next event for SPARSA. So we're going to do it next month on December, I think, 18th. I posted it in...
Yeah, December
I posted
18th.
in chat. Yeah, December 18th. So we'll run something similar. Presentation, we can do a panel again. We've also thrown around things like a coding hour. If anyone here has ever seen Rusty code, it is pretty crazy to watch. So, if that's something you're interested in, we're definitely talking about different ways where we can have different types of streams too. So throw your ideas in, sign up at sparsa.org, get on the MailChimp list, sparsa.org to go and donate. We'll make sure anyone that donates or gets on the MailChimp list, we're going to get you added to all the mailing lists, all the invites, all the special stuff that we're doing. I need to also check here. We did get a good amount of donations tonight, so seriously, thank you everyone that's donated. The goal that we have for this grant fund, and we'll get into way more details, the goal is to do like a 3-month research project basically with somebody. We haven't necessarily nailed down how much we need for each research project, but if you're a student, sign up, wait for that news, and then hopefully we can do something and work something out where we can get you a good amount of just logistic support and money and things like that to go and do your research. So I'm excited about that. Did I miss anything, Kirk or Rusty?
No, I think we're good. Thanks everyone for tuning in, checking out.
We're looking for more ways to engage our community. So if you have
Yes.
suggestions, join the Discord.
Yeah, join the Discord, throw it in there, get signed up, email us, everyone here. We're happy to take emails, eboard@sparsa.org. Yeah, absolutely. It's a good point, Kirk. All right.
Cool. Other than that, don't forget to slap that subscribe button, the follow button. We'll put all our socials out as well. So thank you so much, everyone.
All right. Thanks, everyone.